Yes, I will work with each and every one of you to lead the DA into the national government in 2024.
John Steenhuisen has been a major political figure my whole adult life. I have been watching him navigate the local political scene for some time now, and no other politician has left me so perplexed. There's the John Steenhuisen I see on the news and read about in the media, where he's often portrayed as arrogant, egocentric and unlikable.
You have lied today about this rule. You are a disgrace as a speaker. You should not be sitting there, and we will remove you. We will remove you with a motion of no confidence.
Racist, too conservative.
Well, no, there's no race problem in the DA at all. And if there was, we certainly wouldn't be attracting the type of talent that we have over the years.
He's not a great campaigner, and his commentary on the genocide in Gaza, along with his party's policies on affirmative action, BEE, and land reform, frustrates even his most ardent supporters.
One side's genocide could be another side's freedom fighting.
Then there's the John, described by media houses, and those who know him well, understanding him in ways most people never will. Their John is portrayed as a staunch defender of the DA and quite sensitive to criticism. They view him as a competent leader.
Why is it then that a party led by a white South African is sitting at 22 to 25% in the polls? People are looking beyond race towards competence, ability to get things done, and being able to deliver.
But the way the party and John use the notion of competency is problematic. When the DA was criticised for appearing as a fundamentally white party, John responded, "People are looking beyond race towards competence, the ability to get things done, and the capacity to deliver. That's the game in town, and that's going to be the game in the next election." In this quote, he mentions two things: race-based competence and the ability to deliver. Let's focus on the first one, race-based competence. This statement is problematic because many interpreted it as implying that black leadership lacks competence.
Race is a very easy way to justify your departure.
This perception aligns with John's opposition to race equality policies such as affirmative action, BEE, land reform, and restitution projects. As a result, some columnists have described him as privileged, yet unaware of the broader context and the lived realities of most South Africans.
I'm going to be blunt with you. Isn't the problem that the Democratic Alliance isn't making a big breakthrough? Isn't the problem, in the end, Mr. Steenhuisen, down to you?
No,
You're the wrong
not.
leader for this party.
Absolutely not.
Going back to this line, getting things done and being able to deliver, the party John leads has a documented history of service delivery, but primarily to the minority. The one province they often cite as evidence of their effectiveness is the Western Cape. The city of Cape Town is frequently named the best city globally, boasting a CBD that is cleaner and better maintained than any other urban area in South Africa. However, this success does not extend to the neighbouring townships, which receive minimal service delivery. Crime is out of control, and issues affecting people of colour are consistently blamed on the ANC, despite it not being the ruling party in the province. According to the DA, the problems in the townships are a policing issue that should be addressed by the SAPS. Meanwhile, the Atlantic seaboard enjoys an abundance of officers and security companies at all times. The racial divide is stark, a legacy of apartheid, a system that legally enforced segregation for decades. During this time, a white minority dictated where non-white people could live, work, and exist, often forcibly removing them from their homes. Although apartheid ended in 1994 with the election of a democratic government meant to signal a new beginning, much of the city remains unchanged. This enduring racial division in the city has roots that extend back centuries. The only way to legitimately and honestly address the legacy of apartheid is through the introduction of redress policies. However, the DA's core constituency resists these measures, arguing that they have historically benefited only a select few politically connected individuals. If the party John leads is truly committed to addressing the legacy of apartheid, it should propose alternative redress policies that ensure the economy's ownership patterns reflect the country's demographics. To lead the majority, their social issues must be a priority. For years, John has contended that his party holds the solution to South Africa's advancement. However, critics point out his blind spots regarding issues that impact the majority. Coupled with his reputation as an abrasive party leader, there are doubts about his ability to resonate with young black voters, who could be pivotal in this election. When questioned by the Mail and Guardian about whether he thought South Africa was ready for a white president, he responded,
"Is it ready for a white leader such as John Steenhuisen?"
Was America ready for Barack Obama? Was the UK ready for Rishi Sunak? They both come from minority groupings in their countries, and I think both have performed admirably, particularly Mr. Obama.
Another significant factor is John's position on the grant system. When pressed by the SABC regarding his party's stance on the grant system, considering that a large majority of South African voters rely on grants, his response was somewhat uncertain.
The point is to get people off welfare and off social grants and into a job so that they're able to provide a better future for themselves and their families. I've met so many social grant recipients in my travels around the country say, we can barely survive on these social grants. They're way below the food poverty line.
Here's the reality. The DA might retain certain grants, such as those for the elderly, disability, foster care, and war veterans. However, grants like care dependency, child support, grant in aid, and social distress grant will likely be phased out.
Would you keep the social grant though? You would
absolutely.
keep that? You won't touch it?
In a country like South Africa, where literally a social grant is the difference in somebody starving to death, and you see the childhood malnutrition stalking the country, absolutely, you have to have the safety net.
The DA strongly opposes the SRD grant, advocating instead for the redirection of funds towards job creation to reduce reliance on social grants. However, their approach to job creation also entails eliminating basic income. They argue that the current minimum wage should not be allocated to a single person, and that at least 2 or 3 jobs could be created from that 27 Rand 50 an hour.
Are you taking away a minimum wage? Would you just want to get people into jobs, but they could be working in the most atrocious conditions? What do you mean by this, to try and get people in, get rid of that red tape almost?
Well, of course, what you have to have is a minimum set of criteria around workplace environments. You don't want child exploitation, for instance, you see in some Asian countries. But what we've done is part of the problem is young people who have left school and cannot find work. 7 out of 10 of those people are sitting at home in that situation. What we're saying is for people under the age of, I think it was 25, to be able to allow them to exempt themselves from some of the more onerous conditions. So they'd be given a certificate that exempts them from some of the more onerous labor registrations. Well, such as perhaps minimum wage, such as notice periods, etc.
This fails to foster loyalty, which frankly is a level of commitment desired by every politician in this country.
We must rescue the union buildings from the clutches of a corrupt government.
The DA claims it has a strategy to save South Africa from state collapse. They contend that after only 30 years in power, the ANC has undermined state institutions through cadre deployment, corruption, and criminal activity. Consequently, we now face an unreliable power supply, rampant crime, a concerning number of children unable to meet literacy standards, widespread water shortages, failing ports, and urban decay. These issues have severely impeded South Africa's economic growth and job creation potential. John is confident that once his party assumes power, they will begin addressing governmental shortcomings by eliminating cadre deployment and dismissing corrupt officials. Additionally, they express their intention to construct a capable state that collaborates with the private sector and civil society to salvage South Africa.
It's also a vision of a DA that works closely and constructively with our partners in the Moonshot Pact to ensure that collectively we reach the 51% we need to form a government.
Looking at the numbers for the Mon-Pact shot, it's improbable for the ruling party to be ousted even if their percentage falls below 50%. This is primarily due to the fact that other parties lack the EFF votes required to overthrow the ANC. Such an outcome seems unattainable as each party perceives the other as racist.
Democrats, patriots, and fellow South Africans, this is the DA's vision for 2024 to keep the ANC out and keep the EFF out.
It's a vision of a reinvigorated DA that closes the gap with the ANC as we grow our support to unprecedented levels.
The point is that John is prepared to forfeit the chance of someday governing the country because he fears that a potential coalition could result in a disastrous outcome. While some columnists advocate for this alliance solely to oust the DA, he holds a different stance on the matter.
It's time to get out there, to hit the ground running, and to save our beautiful country. South Africa is a wonderful place, and she's worth the fighting for. Let's get out there, Democrats, and make it happen. The road to 2024 starts here.
And let's face it, a Steenhuisen administration won't usher in a peaceful era in South African politics. If he occupies the union buildings, supporters of the ANC and EFF will tirelessly strive to impede his governance. It's easy to envision an article in the third year of a John presidency attributing his failures to this constant opposition. It's a scenario where the president becomes mired in details, struggling to find common ground with adversaries. Being the president of South Africa doesn't just mean being the father of the nation. You are essentially the most powerful leader on the continent of Africa, and every country in the sub-Saharan region looks up to you. That carries a lot of weight, including the responsibility for all marginalized groups. Maybe John will make efforts, and there might be instances where he succeeds. He'll seek common ground, however small, and foster international relations. He could very well be the president that South Africa needs, but deep down, everyone knows that South Africa is not ready for a white leader.